You see this, the IPCC official. This is the International Panel on Climate Change. You know, these are the guys who make up all this stuff about a third of the world's population, they're going to be without water because all the glaciers are going to melt by 2025 and all this nonsense. An IPCC official, Ottmar Edenhofer, gave an interview to New Zürcher Zeitung, he's talking about really the massive redistributive element in climate policy, because climate policy is supposedly a way to transfer wealth from first world countries all the way to other countries. Now, he's actually come clean. He says, this is how he puts it. First of all, developed countries have basically expropriated the atmosphere of the world community. Did you even know that was possible? This is 21st century colonialism. We don't take the land anymore. We take the air above the land. So one must say clearly that we redistribute de facto the world's wealth by climate policy. Obviously, the owners of coal and oil will not be enthusiastic about this. One has to free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore, with problems such as deforestation or the ozone hole, unquote. So this is IPCC official Ottmar Edenhofer giving the game away by saying that so-called environmental policy is nothing to do with saving the environment anymore. That was a useful, forget about stuff like deforestation, the ozone hole, the carbon levels and all the rest of it. It's not about that. It's about taking money from the part of the world that functions and giving it to everybody else. So in other words, it's a redistributive racket. The environment is an amazing thing. It's the most ingenious pretext for big government ever devised, and not on a state level and not on a national level, but on the global level, because everything's in the environment. What isn't in the environment? You know, government transport policy is about transport, and government agriculture policy is about agriculture, but government environmental policy is about everything, because everything's part of the environment. Your town, your county, your planet, and of course you, which is why, as we've discussed on this show before, we have things like Sheryl Crow demanding limits on how many sheets of toilet paper you can use, and the guys who want to ban two-ply toilet paper, which would devastate the Canadian economy, because of course the Canadians are the house of Saud of two-ply toilet paper, and this would be totally devastating to the Canadian economy. But they're getting less and less coy about telling us what's really behind it. Do you know Thomas Friedman, the great big thinker at the New York Times? He writes these love letters to China every week or two. And he bemoans the fact that the United States is not like China. It cannot just get the job done. It cannot just decide what we need to do and do it, because we suffer from the defect of being a republic with elected legislators who are accountable to the people. And you'd have no idea how messy that awful, horrible democratic republic stuff can be where you urgently need to get the stuff done. So Thomas Friedman writes these objectively disgusting and totalitarian love letters in the New York Times every couple of weeks, where he, to use his phrase, he says, why can't we be China for a day? In other words, why can't for one day a year the United States be governed by a totalitarian Politburo that could just pass all the environmental laws we need and get the job done in a day? And I think you're going to see a lot more of that as they're panicking. They've had the worst year in their lives, the environmental movement, since the leak of the East Anglian emails and all the rest of it, and that and the Copenhagen conference turned out, which was actually an embryo world government they wanted to set up there, and we should be very grateful that it was the Brazilians, the Indians, and the Chinese who saved the Western world from basically driving itself off a cliff. They're becoming less and less shy about the essentially anti-democratic totalitarian thinking behind the environmental movement. So because everything's in the environment, the environment is basically the biggest pretext for big government ever devised in the world. And this guy from the IPCC comes out and says, it's not about the environment. You know, quote, one has to free oneself from the illusion that international climate policy is environmental policy. This has almost nothing to do with environmental policy anymore, unquote. It's just about big government for its own sake. You know, at their annual Monday night poker game in hell, I would bet Stalin, Hitler and Mao are kicking themselves. You know, oh, it's about leaving a better planet to our children. Why didn't we think of that? No jackboots, no goose steps, just a soft and easy, incremental, fluffy totalitarianism all the way. It's about big government on a scale never yet seen, and every so often the mask drops. When the chips are down, says Mayor Hillman, senior fellow at the Policy Studies Institute in London, quote, I think democracy is a less important goal than is the protection of the planet from the death of life, the end of life on it. This has got to be imposed on people whether they like it or not, unquote. Who needs Mussolini? Who needs Stalin when you can justify anti-democratic, this has got to be imposed on people whether they like it or not. You say this stuff and the co-eds at the colleges, they go, oh, it's so nice. He wants to save the planet by taking away democracy and all our rights and imposing on people something they don't want. This is the truth about the environmental movement, and they're getting less and less effective at hiding it. Not the earth is your mother, the earth is your Führer, basically would be the Thomas Friedman bumper sticker. Why can't we be China for a day?